Thank you all for tuning in. You've tuned into another edition of Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen. I am your host for this evening, Kareem Bowen. I want to thank you. We're doing a special live session here. A few weeks ago, we introduced the concept or the conversation on colorism. And I promised you all that I would get some individuals, particularly ladies, to come in and to be a part of this conversation, because I think that in most cases, as we discuss the issues of colorism, they are often the ones that are most involved or most affected by how colorism operates, even though it is something that we understand happens across the spectrum. So I want to thank those of you who are tuning in as you come in. I want to thank you for coming in. Those of you who are watching, thank you for listening to this conversation with Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen as we begin to engage on the conversation of colorism. I've got a great panel of guests with me on today, but you know how we do it here. Hey, we always talk about what's on my mind. And so we want to start with that conversation first. And so I know if you are Black in America, there's only really one thing that's on your mind right now. We've talked about COVID and people are getting vaccinated. That's happened. We've seen a trifecta guilty verdict on the Derek Chauvin case, but it just keeps on coming. This is something that it's like a railroad that is gaining steam, and we've got to begin to do something about it. So the thing that's on my mind today, and I'm going to bring these panel of guests in to talk about it when we get to the end of this, is the whole situation with the murder of Andrew Brown. Y'all know Andrew Brown, 42-year-old young man down in North Carolina. It is crazy. The lawyers of the family of this Black man said that he was gunned down by the sheriff's deputies on last week. And then they had a private autopsy, which showed that this guy died from what we call a kill shot. And a kill shot is a specific shot. It's a shot directly to the back of the head. And the FBI said on Tuesday that they opened a civil rights probe on this shooting. Now, we also are on the heels of something else that's happening with the Justice Department also reopening, and this is good news, an investigation to the Breonna Taylor case, so that we don't have, she did not receive justice, but they're opening up and they're investigating everything. Okay. Andrew Brown, who was 42 years old, was struck by 4 bullets to the right side in his right arm before the fatal shot penetrated the rear of his skull as he tried to drive away. Because what was going on is they were trying to do a warrant. They were trying to give him a warrant on a felony drug charge. And of course, come on, ain't nobody trying to stay around while they're being served. And so as he was fleeing, he was shot. And this felony drug charge, they said this entire incident took place about 30 seconds. Now, the sad thing is that the family has only been able to see about 20% or 20 seconds of this there's other body cam, other footage, I guess about 2 minutes total. The family has only been seen about 20 seconds. I saw the mother impassionately crying out for justice and for them to begin to investigate, and basically saying that her son was executed based upon what they've seen. And I'll tell you, other individuals that have seen this are saying the same thing, that this was an execution. Many things have gone wrong. Now, I need you to understand this, and we're going to get to this right here, because this is becoming to be the situation that we're going to begin to see play out as these types of situations. Derek Chauvin's case was illuminated something. It's a loophole. And I think that this has more to do with keeping your pension and making sure that you have your benefits, your retirement, and all these things. 7 deputies involved with this incident have been placed on administrative leave. And in addition to that, the lawyers from Brown's family said 2 of those deputies that were involved have since resigned, and 1 has retired. Oh my goodness. Y'all know what that's about. That's trying to get to where the money resides. They're trying to hold on to the purse so that they won't lose those things, because if they're fired, then they have the ability to lose their benefits, their pension, and all of their retirement earnings. But I think that we got to begin to have some conversation on how we're going to prevent that from happening. I know that the city is often paid or sued with a civil suit, but I think there has to be some remedy, and I don't know if it's out there already. Some of those who are law folks, you'll have to let me know if we're allowed to go after those pensions and things of that nature. So to continue this conversation, I'm going to bring in the ladies, and I want you all to just, first of all, give a round of applause to Miss Yvonne Daniels. You all know Yvonne Daniels from KissWTLZ.com. Yvonne, why don't you say hello to our audience out there?
Hello. So glad to be a part of this conversation. I am excited. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Yvonne, thank you so very much. The next young lady that I'm going to bring to the stage is Miss Carissa Patterson Martinez. And I've known Carissa for a number of years. Carissa, why don't you introduce yourself briefly and give a shout out to our Straight Talk audience, okay?
Hello, I'm Carissa Patterson Martinez. I'm an entrepreneur, a women's advocate, and I'm just here to keep everybody motivated and excited and inspired.
All right. For those of you who are listening, thank you so much, Carissa. For
Uh-huh.
those of you who are listening to us on the radio, that'll be hearing this conversation on the radio, you're going to get everything, and it won't be an issue. But this next lady, I wish and I hate that she cannot be on here because she has been sun-kissed. She is an absolutely drop dead gorgeous woman. When I say she is fierce, she's her hair is probably 4 inches shorter than mine, if you can see, but she is a powerful woman with great information and insight. And I want you all to welcome. You won't see her because she's a little bit under the weather. Shar Goolsby. She's all the way from Detroit. Shar, why don't you give a shout out to our Straight Talk audience?
Hi, Straight Talk audience. I am Char Goolsby from Detroit. Kareem, thank you so much for having me. I think this is a great conversation that needs to be had, that needs to be addressed. By nature, I'm a serial entrepreneur. And then aside from that, I design and write programs that help people get the best out of their lives. So that's a short synopsis of who I am. And I just want to give a shout out to Detroit, the Motor City.
Listen to her. All right, Shar. Thank you for giving Detroit a shout out. All right, for those ladies that are here now, I addressed, and for those of you who are just tuning in, our conversation on today, we will be talking about colorism. That is an issue that has been a part of our community. But before we get to that, I want them to chime in on what we're hearing as it relates to this situation with the Black men that are being killed. These are some beautiful Black women. I want to know what's going on. Andrew Brown is the latest guy, 42 years old, serving a warrant, shot hitman style, back of the head, and he is gone. What are your thoughts as you begin to listen to this and being mothers in your own rights? What are your thoughts as it relates to what's happening with our men and women being shot down by the popo, if you will?
Well, this is Yvonne Daniels, but I think a lot of it is fear. And it is just amazing because, I have a Black 9-year-old little boy, and I saw something, I think it was on Instagram. It showed the picture of this beautiful little baby boy. He was probably maybe a month old. Then it showed him he was 2 and then 10. And then it was like, when do I become a threat? And it's just so sad. My son, he goes to where they pick them up from school, it's mostly whites. And so I find myself even kind of going to the left or the right of the parents that are coming, and it's not like it's almost like I have to work on myself to be like, okay, yeah, I know you probably don't want to be by. It's just, I don't know, it's just really weird. So, but I think a lot of it is, it is fear. A lot of it is just what people are hearing, because I see it even in the store, with Black people and white people. It's like you can feel the tension really, really heavy. So it's just what people are hearing. But I think a lot of it is fear. And it's amazing that, just by hearing stuff, a lot of that stuff, it's taught, because we see children they don't care. You know what I'm saying? They just, a person is a person, babies can tell when they get good vibes from people, so this stuff is just taught. And so this is stuff that's just being carried on, which is so sad.
All right, Chris, why don't you chime in? What are your thoughts? Because I know you have some opinions in terms of what's going on with our with all these shootings against Black folks and the PD.
Okay, it's terrifying. I have a Black son, and my son happens to be a high functioning autistic son. So on top of that, and by looking at him, you don't know what's what. Very good student, honor roll, but he is very direct. He's all about what's right and what's wrong. And my fear for him is when he's driving one day and gets stopped, and for in his mind, for no reason, I can see him over explaining, you know what I mean, or questioning the police officer, because that's his makeup as an autistic person. So I tease my husband, but I'm sort of serious. I'm like, I wish we could afford to just hire a driver, because, I'm not trying to get my son in the street. And it's so sad. Even like, we live in a beautiful neighborhood, but he went to go walk the puppy one day, and he had like a hoodie And how about, and he just turned 13. You know, I said, babe, don't wear your hoodie. He said, but it's a little misty. I said, just please don't. And it's a whole crazy, sad conversation to even have.
When you think about it, Trayvon Martin, that was the whole issue that he had.
Yeah.
He got in trouble for wearing a hoodie in his own neighborhood.
Mhm.
So what the point that you're bringing up is a very valid point. And those of you out there listening to us on social media, and I want you to feel comfortable just putting your comments or your questions or your thoughts in this stream as we begin this conversation. Shar, all the way from D-Town, what's going on? What are your thoughts as we look at these happenings with our Black young men and women being shot down like target practice, you know, on a gun course? What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I come from a law enforcement family. My father, 30 years, my brother, 35 years, another brother was a military policeman. And I spoke to my dad about this because I just couldn't wrap my mind around why this continued to happen in this day and age with all of these recordings going on, you know. And my dad said something to me that just really stuck out. He said, you cannot police people you're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like one sentence. He said, you cannot properly police people you're afraid of, people that automatically provoke anxiety in you. You cannot police them. And when he said that, I really got a clear understanding. It is about fear, Yvonne, as you said earlier. If you fear the people that you are policing, then the response to a situation is going to be different versus someone that you don't fear, right? So this is how a lot of white Americans get away with crime that Black Americans can't get away with, because when police see them, they don't automatically suspect them. Okay? Bernie Madoff stole billions of dollars. Why? Because he was a white man. Now, I'm betting that Kareem could not have done that. So whenever you have a situation where you have people policing people that they're automatically skeptical of, or they're afraid of, you're going to have shots fired every time.
Well, you know what? When I think about this, Shar, and I go into this conversation, I think that's a great point. I think one of the things, I think fearing them is one issue, but I think there also is an issue of respecting or even having any appreciation for that brown or that dark melanin-filled skin. So if you are afraid of us and you don't have an appreciation for the life that we have, then it's much easier for you to say, hey, it's either me or them. I'm afraid of them, and then overreact to make sure that you get home safely, not having any concern whether or not the other person gets home. All right. Terry Reed, I agree with you out there. He says, great point about policing. You have your own kind of police neighborhood. We understand making a point and being aggressive. All right. Now, I want us to continually think about this, because as this whole conversation unfolds, we're going to continually talk about this, because I think it's important that we understand that policing is necessary. Shar said it best. She said that if she comes from a family of police officers, I come from a family of paramilitary and police officers as well. So I'm not anti-police, but I am anti-policing in the way that we do it on today. And one of the things that I want to ask you before we get to this conversation is I have been challenging myself to re-envision. You guys know that I'm a pastor, so I've been saying, you know, we've got to re-envision ministry. I want to ask you guys a question about re-envisioning the village. I think that we have to re-envision policing. I think we have to re-envision a lot of things as we look at moving forward. But when you think about re-envisioning the village and what it means to be a part of the village, what does that mean to you? And Yvonne, I'll let you go first, because I know you have a strong Afrocentric heritage and a love for Black folks. So when you talk about re-envisioning the community and how policing works within that community, what are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, I think that we need to go back to when police were a part of the community. And I mean, living in the community. I think that's would help a whole lot. You know, you have people that are outside of the community that are coming in to police people in the community. So, and I think that when you live among people that you are quote unquote policing, you look at them differently. You look at them And it's interesting. You speak of being a minister. I was listening to a pastor maybe a couple of weeks ago, and he said the whole thing about when people say Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter, there's always somebody that's not going to be happy. Well, here's the thing. He said we have to make sure that everybody understands that the issue is that all lives are equal. All lives matter for sure. All lives are equal. And so when we get to that point, I think that we'll start to make some progress. But as far as the community, yes, I think that the first step is to make sure that police are a part, they live in the community. And I think you will make a lot of progress when you have that happening. So.
Amen. So Valerie, you're getting a whole bunch of kudos for your conversation. Valerie, readers out there giving you a lot of kudos, Yvonne, for your conversation. But I want us to go ahead and turn to the conversation of the hour on today. I know that some of you guys are saying that you're receiving some feedback. Continually let me know. Give me some feedback and some idea if we're getting feedback still. But we entered into a conversation that's you and I, those of you who are listening, on colorism. And I want to give you guys just a quick overview of what colorism is. And then we'll begin this conversation because I think it's so important for us to have this conversation. And we'll take it all the way back to the good old plantation days. We know back in, this is where this all started, back during slavery, when blacks were beasts of burden. The good slave master would often have his way with the women of the plantation. And this was for multiple reasons, not just because, he just thought they were fair. One of the reasons was because they were absolutely beautiful. And so he loved those black women. But also it was a way to destroy the bond and the connection. If one of the males, which they often referred to as bucks, did something wrong, they would go and they would either give them a beating, or they would begin to sleep with the women in their area, their wives and things of that nature. So when we look at this, they would then have offspring that were half black from the slaves and half white from the master's house. And so as we begin this conversation, I think that it's important for us to understand that those that were half a part of the slave owner's family, they were a part of his genealogy. He brought them in. They tend to be fair skinned. They had more narrow European features, and they were often given the best jobs and the best positions inside the house, and often used as lookouts to keep the other ones in line. So as we begin to do this, I know some of you guys are saying we're getting some feedback. I'm trying to make some changes as we are going right now. We are making changes in real time. And so we're trying to make sure that we handle that as you're going. If someone could turn down their speaker just slightly, I think one of the speakers is just a little bit too loud out there, so that we can make sure that we get that conversation going, and then we'll get going. It's getting louder and heard and hard to understand you. Well, okay, so we're going to see what we can do to make that happen, to work this out. So I'm making some adjustments here as well as you all, and you guys just continually keep us in the loop with this, okay? And we'll try to do, see what's going on here, all right? We're saying we're getting lots and lots of feedback. I'm going to try to make some changes here. Is that better or worse? Y'all just continue to have some conversation and we'll keep going. But as we know this, the Bucks would, then rise up. They would do whatever they would try to get away. Individuals would, point them out, and the light skinned ones would be then in the house. The darker skinned ones would be out in the field. He would appoint the light skinned, which were half of the slave owners' genealogy, to oversee them. And so through the years, we've seen that conversation. Somebody says it's from my mic. If it's from my mic, I'm going to abandon my mic and we'll go. So just give me 1 second, those of you who are out there, because I don't want to be the reason for it. He says it's from your mic. So we're going to make a change here really quick. So just keep going. I'll continue to talk. I'm going to go back to, let me pull.
We're still here.
We're still here.
Be no dead air. We're still here. Just waiting on our host Kareem to get his mic going.
While we're waiting, because I know we got to know each other very briefly last week, and I've been intrigued with you guys. Tell me a little bit. Oh, he's back. Later on, we were just trying to keep a conversation going.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Oh, and Char's off. Yeah, Char's not there either. Okay.
All right. Any luck with hearing me?
Okay. Yeah, you sound a hole, but we can hear you. Yes, sir.
You're very low, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure that we get this. So I want to throw this out there. Are you able to hear me now?
It's really like you're in a well somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, give me 1 second. I'm trying to do something new that we're trying here, and I want to make sure that we get this into you guys can hear me.
And Char got kicked out. She wants to come back in.
Oh, Char's trying to get back in.
Yeah, Char's trying to get back in too. No, looking for the phone.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that has issues with this thing.
We can't hear you.
You're not hearing me. What now?
There we go.
Now we can. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Char, we lost Char. She's out there. I hope, Char, are you there?
I am here now. I'm in the show. Yes.
Well, I appreciate you guys. We are all here now.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay. So those of you who are listening, hopefully you can hear. Yvonne, you look a little concerned. Are we there?
Yeah, because I was reading Jay's comment. Yep.
Okay, good. We're here. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. We're going to get this together. But so we were saying that those who were in the house got preferential treatment. They were tending to be a part of the Masters family. They were light-skinned, fared differently than the others. And we've seen this kind of happen through the distance. Y'all see, this is called moving on the fly. And I'm doing something new, y'all. So y'all just kind of work with us out there, okay? So we're working on this. But as we saw that, then we saw this as we continued post-slavery. Something came up, and I shared this with someone in one of the conversations, something called the paper bag test. Have you ladies heard about the paper bag test before?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And so for those of you that are listening, a paper bag test was they would take a paper bag, which is a light brown. Yvonne, you're looking for a paper bag. And they would put it up to their face. And if they were lighter than the paper bag, then they would, as you could say, they could pass. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Terry. He says we're sounding great right now, that you could pass. And so it became an issue of being able to pass, and being lighter than that paper bag, being what would be considered acceptable, would allow you access into social groups and neighborhoods and all types of things. And so as we continued, we would see shows such as Spike Lee, and we'll talk about Spike Lee's School Days, the Wannabes and the Jigaboos. We've seen this play out where there is now this pitting light skin against dark skin in our community. And we've seen it happen so many times. I want to start, Char, with you out there. Have you had any occurrences or run-ins as it relates to this whole concept of colorism?
Well, yeah, I'm like blacker than 12 midnights, right? So it's no way that you live in this man's America and not experience some type of discrimination based on the shade of your skin, the length of your hair, the straightness or the kinkiness of your hair. In this country, it's either classism, it's racism, it's sexism. It's always some type of ism that allows the white male to be the dominant person. So yes, I've experienced that. I've experienced it outside of my family. I've experienced it inside of my family, where my brothers would call me names. Well, one brother, because he just was one half of a shade lighter than the rest of us. And my mother wouldn't tolerate it. She would chastise him for it. But for sure, I have experienced it with dating. A guy doesn't want to date me didn't want to date me. I haven't dated in 30 years now, but, because I was dark, or whatever the case may be. But yes, and I felt it and I know it. I know it when it's in the room. And sometimes you can't explain it, you can't put words to it, but you know it when it's in the room, when it's in your spirit. So yes, I've experienced colorism. I've heard my mother talk about it. When you couldn't be an elevator operator at Hudson's downtown if you were this shade of Black person. And how her girlfriend Annie got a job at what was Detroit Edison at the time because she was that shade of Black person. So this is not a new thing, and it still exists today, and nobody's going to tell me any different.
Well, Charlotte, one of the things that I would have to chime in and say, I would say it like this, back in the 80s when we were growing up, we were junior high school, you had to be Christopher Williams, light skin, curly hair, you had to be a member of the group, the Barge. Everybody wanted light skinned brothers. Dark skinned brothers were going out of style, but thank God for the 1990s and 2000. We introduced some Black men. Now you say Morris Chestnut and all the women swoon. But that just shows you how things have changed over the course of time as it relates to men. But oftentimes that battle is very different for women. Carissa, I want you to chime in this moment and share a little bit about your experience. Is colorism still a thing? Is this something that is in the past and we need to move on? Is it just a matter that people prefer what they prefer and you're reading too much into it? What's your story?
No, I think it's a thing, and I think it's not a thing that's going to change anytime soon because we as a people use it with each other. You know what I'm saying? So until we figure out how to not do that, it's going to always be a thing. And sometimes we have a hard time of letting things go and doing new things. But I shared with you all a little story happened to me. And I think that's what opened my eyes to colorism as a little girl. My very fair-skinned aunt, and there's whole history behind how she even came to the family, but very fair-skinned aunt, and I loved her. She was like one of my favorite aunts. I spent a lot of time with her, and she said to me one day, I think I was in maybe 5th grade, she said, you know what, you are so pretty to be so dark. And that was the first of it for me. And that's when I was like, it took me a minute, but I realized at that moment, I must be just okay enough.
Right.
Of course, I'm grown now. I have different views, but at that time to be so young, I thought I'm just okay enough because I'm so dark. You know what I'm saying? And so that kind of jacks you up if you don't have people in your life to kind of counter that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you have to go through life and fall and figure out how to handle that. But that was eye-opening that my own family member would say that to me as a child.
I've heard that a million times, Carissa, that they will say, "Ooh, she's so pretty to be so, to be so dark," as if that the darkness is a peg or a mark against your color. But Yvonne, I want you to chime in here because you had an amazing story growing up about your color and embracing your color and how that had to be. So why don't you share really quick what your thoughts are as we begin this conversation on colorism?
Well, of course, I grew up in the South, in Atlanta, Georgia. So, in the 70s and 80s, it was like, especially in high school, man, I was teased relentlessly. And someone said, I think it was Char that said her brother teased her. Well, I had cousins that, they were just as bad as the people in the high school. And I'm like, really? I'm like, we're blood. What's going on? So, but, interestingly enough, I even had good girlfriends that I knew that when guys like me, they were trying to talk to those guys because they thought that they, could talk to them and that they could pull them away from me because I'm, dark skinned. I was always the darkest one, and, my friends and I was always considered the dark skinned sexy one. The other ones were pretty, but I was like, so I was like, but it's so, and I don't know if it was because of my mother. I don't know if it's just something that God instilled in me, but I never saw my skin as anything against me, and even though the guys would call me names and stuff, I had one guy 5 years after we graduated from high school, when they saw me at a reunion, they were like, I always thought you were kind of cute. I was like, yeah, you can miss me with that. Okay. You can miss me with me. I ain't trying to.
Did you marry him, Yvonne?
No. Oh, no. No. But I always loved the skin that I was in. I think it was because I had a mother that always let me know, look, you're a beautiful girl. You got a lot going for you. You are, you're pretty, this and that, da, da, da. And I just always felt good about me. But like Shar, I know that, that there were things that, and I know that people looked at me a certain way because I was dark skinned. And so they didn't think I was as good as, but I shared the story too, that when I was growing up, there was a lady by the name of her name was Monica Kaufman at the time. She was probably 2 or 3 shades darker than I am. She was the number one anchor in Atlanta. I mean, for years. And so I sat there every night watching Monica Kaufman do her thing. And Monica would cut her hair short. She dyed blonde, and she was chocolate sister, and she was the GOAT. And so what I would try and do too was find people that resembled me, like Lauryn Hill. I remember gravitating towards Lauryn Hill because Lauryn was slim, she was chocolate, she was beautiful, she was doing her thing, so those people that look like me, I would say, okay, she's succeeding, she's beautiful, she looks like me, but I will share also that in college, my first year at Florida A&M University, one of the basketball players, he was a tall, light-skinned guy. He was a nice looking guy, not just because he was light-skinned, but he was, but he said, you are a pretty chocolate girl. And I'll be honest with you, that was the first time that I had one of my peers, a male peer, say that I actually was a pretty girl, a beautiful girl. And so, and that did resonate with me. And I still remember that to this day, so I think that we have to, for our young, and I will tell you too, that I see it a lot with our athletes. I see a lot of athletes. It's very rare that you see Black athletes, with Black women, so it's like, wow.
You are stepping somewhere real hard. Let's talk about that, because, whenever we talked about when we were kids growing up, I remember us having, we would play, your mama jokes, your mama so, your mama so poor, your mama so Black. And how many of those were like, your mama so light skinned? You didn't hear those jokes, right? Your mama so light skinned, but we heard the your mama so Black jokes. But Yvonne, you tapped into something that I think is really important. And Valerie Reed, you're absolutely correct. I want to go there. When we look at what we see as beautiful, and I think colorism also has to deal with what we find as beautiful in our community. I'll tell you this. I'm not going to say I'm happy now, but the reality is, when I first saw a sister go natural, I was like, what in the world is going on? And it spoke to, I think, a particular schism in the way I saw things as a Black man. When I was growing up, I'm a dark-skinned brother, always been dark in my life, but we always wanted light-skinned, long-haired sisters. That was what was on the mark. Oh, she fine. When we look at the people that were put in front of us, we look at, the Lisa Bonets, and we look at, what was her name? Whitley, from what was it?
Jasmine Guy.
Jasmine Guy. We look at Jasmine Guy. We look at all of the celebrities and the stars that they put before us. They were light skinned, long hair. Now, that's one thing. But when we begin to look at it, and people have a preference, you can do whatever. I worked in the NBA for 18 years. And I can tell you, is colorism live and well? Well, if y'all just want to call it preferences, there's a whole lot of preferencing away from those who look like the women that are on the screen right now. But a lot of NBA athletes and celebrities, they say that in order for you to do certain things, you got to have someone on your arm who looks like you. And we've heard that before. And we see the selection of Black men who have grown up in our inner city streets, mothers who are dark as a 1,000 sun-kissed summer days. When they make it to their destination or to some pivotal level of success, they choose someone who does not look anything like where they came from. I want you ladies to talk about this, because I asked a number of women who were fairer skinned, and they were telling me that, these issues were not really issues that they had addressed or had issues with. And they really think it might be about self-confidence for you sisters who are of the darker shade colors. I need you all to address this for me, okay? I'm playing devil's advocate. I said it. That's right. I said it.
Yeah.
Who wants to jump in on that? Go ahead, Sharf.
I'd take her lunch every day then, if that's the case. Because I'm from Highland Park, so I just take your lunch. light-skinned
Hey, Shar.
women. Yeah.
Shar, hold on. Because my mother's out there. She said, your mother said, she talking about me. My mama said that I am black and fine. Y'all said it. I'm chocolate, black and fine. Thank you, mama. If don't nobody else love me out there, your mama always gonna love you. But go ahead, Shar. You were saying,
You
I'm sorry.
and my mother used to tell me I was a pretty black girl, not like a pretty girl, but a pretty black girl. Like mom didn't know that making the distinction black in the sentence could actually mean something to me, could actually um, wire my circuitry in my brain a certain way that she felt compelled to say black with pretty because she knew with being a darker skinned woman that black did not mean pretty in her generation as well. So back to our light skinned sisters.
Dun, 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 dun.
You know, our struggle is not their struggle. Really, it just is not their struggle. I hear a lot of light skinned sisters say, "Well, they used to call me this or they used to call you that." I said, "Did they say that you were black as shoe leather? Did they
Wow.
say you were a black dog? Did they say you were because black already means negative, and then put something else negative next to the black." So their struggle is not our struggle. It's something about that light skin and that long hair that means something inside of the black community. I don't have to look very far outside of my immediate family to see it happening. I'm looking in my immediate family. The darkest people in my family have the light, bright, darn near white women. So their struggle is just not our struggle because our struggle comes from the outside, it comes from the inside. It's a totally different conversation.
Well, but you know what, Shar, you said something very powerful. And if we look at this, how children grow up and what they hear, what's on the outside often and how it's responded to and what's spoken to it can begin to damage what's on the inside. So if we feel that our sisters who are dark are having issues, and I'll tell you because I have a younger cousin. Her name is Tiffany. And I used to always say what you just said. I say, "Oh, you are a pretty black girl," and she's skin is milky, smooth, absolutely gorgeous. And I say, "You are a pretty black girl," and I never understood that type of connotation. I should have just said, "You are beautiful. You're a beautiful girl," but that made her feel like there's something wrong with my black, with me being this dark. But I'm an exception to the other dark girls. So I don't want to be dark. And so when I look at what I see in our communities, and I don't know if it's self-hate, I don't know if it's freedom of expression or what you might call it, but we're seeing, our women are getting lighter. In Africa, in Jamaica, there's a whole issue with black women bleaching their skin. And if you remember back in the 80s, there was a conversation that was going about black women bleaching their skin to be lighter. We go to we're not satisfied with the wideness of our nose, so we get thinner noses. Now they're going and buying fuller lips, and we're trying to shrink ours. They want, J-Lo, we talk about cultural appropriation. J-Lo comes out on the scene, and she has a big butt, or Kim Kardashian. Now everybody wants a big butt, but our women been sporting big butts all of their lives. And so we see that when the dominant culture says that it's okay for the features that we've donned for our entire lives, that they're okay to be accepted and they're okay to be beautiful, we now see a running to the plastic surgeon to get what we've already got. How does that make you feel when you see individuals make such a big deal over Kim Kardashian and the fact that she's got ample hips, I'll say?
And Kim Kardashian is black. She's Armenian. Let's
She's
cut it out.
Armenian.
Let's cut it out.
That's
Let's cut
right.
it out. J-Lo is, I think J-Lo is Puerto Rican or something, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's something.
That's
Yeah,
that's
they're
Spanish
black.
and African, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're black. So
Yep.
Kim Kardashian, she went and got her waist snatched a little bit. She had 3 babies and her waist looks like she's 17. No, I'm not buying it. So I'm saying that the 2 examples that you gave were women who are really black who don't want to call themselves black. They come from through the African diaspora for sure. Um, I think what kind of irritates me more is when I see these white girls, right, doing the things that they're doing to their bodies to get these big old booties and these little bitty snatched waists. Like, what is that about? But I just want to just say, just for the record, Kareem, I don't want you to say it again because those two girls black.
Ah. Okay, so but being a sister of color, have you seen instances? We're talking about this, and people say, that's just that's just your opinion. I don't see that happening. And Carissa, speaking to that issue, you as a chocolate skinned woman, you gave an example of you being married to a fairer skinned black man, and how you have seen it play out in your situations with your husband. What have you seen in terms of that context? Is this really something we're dealing with?
Well, let me first start by saying I love my husband. He is the bomb, okay? But I don't know how I ended up with him. And the reason why, and it goes back to the whole colorism thing. I thought I wanted a husband that looked like my dad, who was 6'3", athletic and chocolatey, right? But he was my friend, you know what I'm saying? And it happened to be. But we have been in situations where in stores or just out and about, they would treat me a little bit different if I was by myself. And these are the same people who have seen me and Michael together. They would treat me a little bit little darker than if I was by myself, than if Micah were with me. And when he's with me, it's a little different. It's like special treatment or something, or it's a pass or something. And I can't fault him for not completely understanding.
Wait a minute, Chris. I gotta stop you. Did you just say if you feel that sometimes when you're with your fair-skinned husband, your light-skinned husband, that you get a fair-skinned pass? That means you get preferential treatment or different treatment in those cases?
Well, what I mean by that is they see me, the same group or the same individuals, whoever it is, they see me, I want to say as a threat, but I am a strong black woman. And so I'm aggressive in their mind. And I'm not, you know what I'm saying, unless provoked. But they see him as, he's fair. He's cool. And so then we have different treatment. That's all. So it's almost like we get a pass. Not that he passed, but that we get we get a pass because he happened to be with me. And that's not all the time, but it's very uncomfortable to them, not to me. I'm looking at them like, really? You just saw me the other day. But it's crazy because it's an actual thing. And when I try to sometimes explain this to my fair-skinned husband, sometimes I'm not sure if he can relate. You know what I mean? It's like, are you sure you're just not overthinking? Or I think you just think too much. And it's not that. It's a real thing. Because when my kids are with me, sometimes I get looks depending on what part of the world I'm in. Like when we were in South Carolina, I had all kind of situations because I was in South Carolina and they assumed that I married, maybe was with a white man. I don't know, because my kids are fair. So it's a definite thing. It's not something it does not exist. It exists.
I want to bring up this idea, and I threw this out there. And Terry, we got your comment. He said, no one wants to say that black is beautiful out loud, but their action demonstrates how they truly feel. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm black and I'm proud, and I say it out loud.
Right?
Hey, man,
Yeah.
Black is beautiful. There is no other color that I would like to be at this time. And my only desire is that every black boy and girl out there would understand the power of their blackness. There is power. The sun has. Let me explain to you what makes skin black. What makes that skin black is that the sun is able to be harnessed by the melanin in your skin. Sun is the most powerful light that exists on the earth. And so when I think about my blackness, I say my black is power. And so I love the fact that I'm black. I remember when I was a kid growing up, my parents would always send us out. My grandmother, whenever you say to my grandmother, she'd be like, y'all stop running in and out the house. And she would make you go outside and she would give you a gallon of water and put some styrofoam cups. You put your name on it. and we would be outside the entire summer. And then when we came back in, the first thing that they would say was like, "Ooh, y'all done got so black. Like being black was bad." And for a period of time, I remember we would be going around trying to be in the shade, trying to find out where the shade was so that we wouldn't get any darker. And it wasn't until that we got out of that system of thinking and we began to understand the power of our blackness. And Kelly Petros, you are absolutely right, my light-skinned sister. She said, all shades of black are beautiful. And I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you can get every color under the rainbow out of black, but the converse is not true. But I want to say that I want to bring this to this conversation. I shared with you guys before about the Spike Lee movie. There were two groups of people, the jigaboos and the wannabes. Mm-hmm. And in this conversation, Spike Lee brings to light what we have been talking about for eons and decades, which is, hey, the light skin, how are the light skin, long haired, fair skinned women treated over the dark skin? And so the sorority groups, and we see this even, you see somebody and say, you look like a Delta, or you look like an AKA, or you look like a Z5B. And we say that because of what reasons? When we hear those distinctions, Yvonne, how do you feel and what does that say to you when you hear those kinds of distinctions?
You mean as far as between the sororities?
Yeah.
Well,
are they playing out something that is a part of the system of colorism in terms of how we view ourselves?
Yeah, I think. Because and I may get some of the sorority sisters that might, maybe like, but of course, when I was at Florida A&M University, I wanted to be a Delta. I love the Deltas, and the Deltas were known to be, you could see it. They were the chocolate sisters. Most of the AKAs were fair skinned girls, the fair skinned ladies. So I don't know if that was because, and I will tell you too, I am usually the only Black person in most of the meetings that I go to, and when I'm around ladies at different events or what have you, it's always the white people that are like, oh, oh, wow, you're so pretty. You're so this, you're so that. So I will say too, that I think a lot of that stuff, most of it is within our own community. It's within our own, amongst Black people. I think it may be more so among us than it is outside of our race. I'll be honest with you. So that's sad to say. And I think it is very important that we as Black women, if we're talking about, especially the young ladies, and I think with the young boys too, I tell my 9-year-old, and I'm glad that he sees his mother as a chocolate woman who wears her hair natural, because we can go a whole nother topic is the good hair. I have people in my family that still say good hair, and I have to say, whoa. We don't do good hair anymore. And even though one of my aunts is 70 plus, but I have to, and she kind of gets a little upset, but I'm like, that's the kind of language that we have to kind of change,
Yeah.
Our dark skinned young ladies know, look, and like you said, not to say, oh, you're a pretty Black girl. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. And we need to include our light skin too, because as you can see, a lot of them feel like they're like, oh yeah, the dark skin, they don't like, and I've heard they don't like me because I'm light skinned. I don't know what the issue is or whatever, but and they think because they're light complexion, that dark skin, I look at a beautiful person is a beautiful person to me. I don't distinguish, but a lot of times, that comes into play. And so I think it is important for us to make sure that we let them know that is not so.
I have to say, before it leaves my mind, we're talking about our light-skinned sisters. I may have been in a blessed situation because in my high school, there's nothing but love. You know what I'm saying? Light skin, and it's not always, it's okay. J.W. Sexton, Lansing, Michigan, I had to shout out because really it was in my family that I felt these things, or these, but at the high school, I did not. You know what I'm saying? From my light-skinned sisters, from the Caucasians, it was an unusual kind of world. I don't think that is everywhere, and I wish it was. But we were all like the class of 1990, the class of 89. We were such a tight group together that we were all rallying for each other, and I wish it could be that way, because when sometimes I look into my family, or even like in the world, depending on where I am in the world, like South Carolina, then we have issues, you know what I'm saying? But it starts with us. Like, we have to change the language. You're right. Like when people say things like, and I had a cousin who said to me about my son, whose hair is more like mine than my husband. He said, "Oh, you should have cut his hair so soon because he don't have that good hair no more." I'm like, "Excuse me? He had my hair. That's good hair. Good hair."
Okay.
Good hair.
I think you just hit on something, Carissa, that we really need to talk about. Quakers, she said Quakers, but love Big Reds too. I think you're getting a lot of love when you said sexted out there. So people give you some love, all right?
Hey.
We're gonna get to this question that Terry has, but I want to say this. You brought up the concept of good hair. I'm gonna read a question or a post that we got from Terry Reed. It's a question. Not only women that had that issue, light skin was, and for us growing up, the girls didn't want dark brothers until Morris Chestnut. That's what I'm trying to say. Idris Elba came around later. That's what I'm trying to say, Terry. For us, tall, dark, and handsomes, nobody wanted us. They didn't want us like that. Now, I tell you, we got a lot of play when we went all the way on the other side of the film. The darker we were, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice, is what a lot of folks thought concerning of us. But I want to talk about this conversation of good hair because I think this is, and you guys may have lost me for a second. I want to talk about this conversation of good hair, all right? And Carissa, you brought that up. In our family, I remember I had one particular cousin who was dating a biracial girl at the time. No, dating a dark-skinned girl. And his mother said, this is my family member, said, I don't want no black babies. I don't want no black grandkids. This is something that was real. Y'all didn't heard this before. I know I'm not the only one that's ever said this. I don't want no black grandbabies. And it impacted him in such a way that he went on, he married someone that was she was biracial, and now has a tendency or a preference that is really toward white women. And so I think that when we talk about colorism, it really depends on the individuals that are raising these individuals.
Yes.
Because if I feel like I'm dark and my dark is not beautiful, then I am going to portray that and I'm going to push that forward in my lessons of what is beautiful to the other cultures. All right. But let's roll that thing back. And I want to talk about good hair. Because, we thought the good hair was the wavy hair, the good curly hair. Yvonne, I'm coming at you full steam ahead. Because I use a term that you said was a part of this coloristic scheme. When I said that, I don't want no woman with nappy hair. Do you remember me having that conversation or me saying that to you and you corrected me? You said the word is not nappy, it's kinky. And you taught me there. And so, hey, I'm always up for growth and for correction. So explain to me, what is good hair?
Well, to me, any hair is good hair. If it's healthy, it's good. All right. You got some on your head, then it is good hair. But I have heard people, because of course, in the natural hair, I wanted to go natural for so long. I mean, since like the 90s. So, there are a lot of YouTubers that, and there are a lot of people that will say, well, nappy is what it is. Nappy ain't nothing. But when you hear the word nappy and when people say it, it's always with a negative tone. I don't hear a lot of times nappy being said, with a positive tone. And so, and they, a lot of times they will associate nappy with bad hair, so, and I just think that is just so because the word is kinky and it is beautiful. And I love this natural hair. Some people say it's kind of like a trend. I don't think so because it's been around for quite some time, but just to be able to see Black women with the texture of hair that you have, it is so important. Representation is so important. It is such a beautiful thing to the point where, a lot of times natural women will look at each other. You could tell, just like the Black men have the Black man's nod. You see a brother, but kind of like, what's up?
Yes.
A lot of times natural, and I can see the sister looking, and I'm like, yes, girl, I see you too. And a lot of times I will say, I love your hair. Now, I think with us, it has taken a minute for us to even hear that, that I love your hair. So when I first started saying it, like they'd be like, okay, all right, thank you, but now it's like, I love your hair. It's like, oh girl, thank you. Yours is pretty too. So it's just a whole another bonding thing that we have. But the hair, it's a beautiful thing. And here's the thing, God didn't make a mistake. He made it like this for a reason. And so we have to remember that, it's beautiful.
I want to bring to light what you're talking about. And Jay Garth, who's out there, he said, and I think it was Don Imus, who said he called the women's basketball team a bunch of nappy-headed HOES.
What?
And he was
Wow.
saying that that was one of the things that kept him from saying that. If we look at that, that's how we're viewed from other individuals. Why would we purport those same stereotypes from within? One of the conversations I think we need to have here is what is good hair? And Shar, if I were to ask you what's good hair now, because you guys don't see Shar and you can't see her from the video chat, but Shar hair is, she wears almost like a ball fade. Her
Yeah, I
skin is
do.
dark. She looks. What nationality are you? Did you find out you come from, Shar?
I don't know, but
You don't know.
people from Senegal always say you Senegalese woman, because I'm tall and I'm thin, and they see the, the country of Senegal in me. But let me say this about this hair thing.
Go
I
ahead.
am like any hair is good hair, but hair is a real problem. So when I got married back in 1994, I was wearing a high top fade and had been wearing one for several years. When I met my husband, I had a high top fade. My mother said to me in all of her wonderfulness, certainly you're going to let your hair grow out for your wedding. And I said, no, I will not. This is my hair. So my mother was born in 1944. So it was all about getting your hair fried and as straight and as long as you could. My mom always had
Fried,
long hair.
dyed, and laid to the side.
Exactly. So she that was her thing. So I said, wow, I'm 30 years old and we're still here, mom. I did have a talk with her and I helped her to understand that that really did hurt my feelings. When my daughter was born, I did not realize that she was ashamed to have me pick her up from school because at that point I had no hair. I was wearing no hair, a bald fade. And she said that the kids had been teasing her about the way her mother looks. This was in, so this had to be in 1980 when this was going on. So still in 1980, my 4-year-old was getting programming that something about short hair was bad. This thing has not gone away. It's still there. It's still wired in our circuitry. So again, my mother said something she didn't intend to hurt my feelings, but she said, certainly you're going to let your hair grow out for your wedding. I said, certainly not. So this is something that is just wired into our DNA. It's something that has to be handled. My daughter has never had a perm. She's 25. She's never had a perm. Now she's wearing her hair with some braids of some sort. I don't know the kind of braids, but she's not hooked on the hair thing now. But when she was 5 years old, she was like, can you have auntie pick me up from school?
Hmm.
And I felt sad about that. I felt sad that I did not meet her expectations that have been given to her by somebody else.
Wow. That's heavy. I don't even
Yeah.
know how to even process that one. So let me ask you this question, Shar. Finding that out, how did you respond to that? That's heavy. Your daughter thinking that, hey, my mom's not beautiful because she dark or she don't have no hair. I think that's heavy. How did you process that? What did you do to kind of move forward with that with your daughter?
So I'm sure I don't remember the exact conversation, but it probably went something like, I am very happy with who I am and how I look. And I'm very unconcerned about what other people think. And you shouldn't be concerned about what other people think because you live well, you are well. God loves me, He loves you, He loves all your friends. Don't concern yourself with other people's opinions about your mother. Your mother can hold her own. So it went something like that, I'm sure. But again, That peer interaction, you can never discount how powerful that peer interaction is.
Mhm.
I don't care what you're telling your kids at home, what
Yeah.
their friends are saying to them overrides what you're saying 90% of the time. But as Mrs. Collins, her second grade teacher, told me, you just keep pouring it in them. You
That's
keep
right.
pouring it in
That's
them.
right.
You
There
keep
you go.
pouring it in them. And it's like ragu, it's in there.
Hey, I want to bring up this point. You were talking about young. We've had a lot of conversation about young people. I want to talk about, are we doing a disservice to our children when we look at the schools that we're putting our kids in? Because we want them to have the best education. We want them to have the greatest opportunity. We want them to excel in life. And what we often find, many of us, is that we put our children into schools where they are the only, or one of the only, or a group of the only that exist in their community. And so we see them having to deal with, Sarah has long curly hair with ribbons in it. I want long curly hair with ribbons in it. And so there is a great peer pressure, and peer pressure is something real hard to deal with. And so I think we have to have a conversation. Are we going to do something to fix our community, or are we going to reinvest our children in our community? Because when we put them in predominantly white communities, we have to understand that we're going to have to teach, train, and really deal harder, because they're not going to get it when they're. I grew up in a predominantly white community, and I'll tell you what I learned about Black people did not come in my 1.5 weeks talking about Black Americans, Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman. It came from my family. It came from me learning outside of the classroom. That meant my family had to be stronger in communicating what it meant to be Black and what it meant that my Black is beautiful. So are we willing to have those types of conversations with our children because we want them to have a great school? Carissa, I think you said, your kid going out, you didn't want to wear a hoodie because you live in a decent neighborhood. Are we willing to go the extra mile and have those conversations so that we're not continually purporting, these thoughts that white is better looking than Black, or I have to be this way to be accepted? There's some kids that are afraid to date Black girls because all their friends are dating white girls. So, what is it that, do you think that we are furthering this type of conversation in our community, or this type of thought process in the minds of our children, by placing them in these very homogenous societies? Carissa,
Say again.
do
Well,
you
I
think?
think it's
Yeah, go ahead.
imperative because that as parents, it's our job to strengthen our children, to give them all the tools they need to combat whatever's going to come their way and be comfortable. And we talked briefly, but there was a situation where my daughter, at the time, she was 5. We had just relocated military to a school that was predominantly Black, and she went to school with her hair beautifully curly. It was beautiful, and up until that point, she loved her curls. I loved her curls. She was rocking it. But she came home from school that day, and the thing she said, and it broke my heart, was, "Mommy, you made me look ugly today." And I'm like, "No, I didn't, because you fly, because I'm fly, and we fly, right?"
Yeah,
With your
okay.
curliness. But what it was, is it's just, and that just made me I had to get strong in my message to her beautiful self. I had to remind her that you are gorgeous and what God gave you. But when she went to school and she wasn't prepared, she was 5. She was 5. So they wanted to touch her hair. They said, "Oh, it's different." So different for her meant I don't fit in. Now, it's tricky because when we moved around and hopped around like this, I would always look at the school district, how they're doing in the marks, what are they doing? And that's how we would land in the neighborhood we landed in. And unfortunately, sometimes it would be like only 1 or 2 of us. And so it is my job. It is my duty to give her the talk so that she knows how to give herself self-talks. Because we can't get around it. Because when she goes out in the world, when she graduates college, she goes to the workplace, it's going to be there. But now she's going to be equipped because we are telling her what it is. She knows mommy is In fact, sometimes when I'm not wearing my hair, but when I wear my hair, my husband and my kids are like, "Mommy, your hair it's so nice and curly. I love my hair." But for me, hair is like this necklace. It's an accessory. You know what I'm saying? So it's like how I'm feeling that day.
Carissa, you're going to make me have to have a whole nother share called Good Hair. And we're going to talk about it because some of the brothers, and now this has nothing to do with colorism, but there's a lot of brothers who will see this and be like, listen, we trying to figure out who y'all got removable parts. Everything is an accessory, but y'all want a brother to come 6'2", 200 pounds and chisel like an Adonis. So we'll talk about good hair another time and another conversation. Go ahead.
I don't want to stay on it too long. But for me, it's to give my own hair a break. Honestly, like, when I have my hair out too much and I'm wearing it curly, I put too much product in it, and then it's not good. So I'm cool with, okay, I'm gonna braid it up for a month and we're gonna be good. But the message is, it's all good hair, and I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? I'm not feeling less than because I got this on, because tomorrow I could be rocking me and be fly in my curliness.
Absolutely.
Kelly
Petros, and then we're going to come to you, Yvonne. She says, what's the expectation for all of our kiddos? Let's look at SASA. SASA is Saginaw Arts and Science Academy here in Saginaw. It's diverse. The expectation for those that attend SASA should be the expectation for all students within the district. What you permit, you promote. Yeah. Bam! You better say that, Kelly.
And that's what I was going to say. That is the perfect thing to be in a school where it's diverse, where you got a little bit of everything. Yeah. That's the best case scenario.
Absolutely.
And they offer great programming. So of course, parents are going to want their students to go there. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with, of course, we want everybody to be there, but to even put your child in a place that's all Black.
Yeah.
That may be doing them a disservice too in this day and time, because then they're not going to be able to,
real life.
Other people.
But, but all Black people, but let me just say this, all Black people, your kid can be in an all Black situation, but be in multiple experiences of Black people. Mm-hmm. Like every Black person doesn't have to be upper middle class. Some can be this, they can be that. Some could have lived.
We are not a monolith. We're not a monolith.
We're not a monolith. Mm-hmm. So,
right.
But I'm going to take my chances putting my kids more in an all Black situation. I lived in Olathe, Kansas for several years and put both my kids in a private Christian school that had no interest in having a conversation about diversity, had never had Black History Month, did not care to have Black History Month. And when I forced them to have Black History Month, they kind of half did something. And I went right into that principal's office. I knocked on his door. I said, come here, follow me. And we went out to the hallway and we looked at the display. I said, that does not represent a Hackney. Mm-hmm. That does not represent me. That does not represent excellence. So we need to take that down until you guys can do better. Because, as my friend said, what you permit,
you promote.
Yeah.
You promote.
That's right.
So me, I'm like, this is not going to fly. This doesn't represent me. It's Black History Month. This looks like some garbage up here. So we're going to take this down until y'all can get it together. I'll be back in a couple of days. Let's see if y'all could do better.
I want to thank you, ladies. We cannot have this conversation forever. This is only an hour show, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And I got your comment out there, Valerie. There's still a level of comfort being around people that look like you. Representation matters to me. I agree with you. And if I don't feel comfortable, I'm not going to be around you. How about that one? But I want to end this conversation. And Kelly Petros, you get the gold star for the day. With the saying of the hour, what you permit, you promote. We've got to begin to have these conversations in our community. Everyone wants their children to have the best of all situations. They want them to have the leg up, but we got to understand that we have to be educators inside of our homes. We can no longer wait and allow the school systems to tell us what our children need to know, because when they come home, we've got to let them know what it means to be Black, what it means to be beautiful. And I want to continue this conversation because I think that we need to have a follow-up conversation with communicating Blackness to our children. What is important for us to talk about? Black hair, Black skin, Black activities, what that means, and how do we communicate those to our children in a way that they understand their place in the world and don't look down on anybody else or think that they're better than or anyone else, but understand the power of the melanin in their skin. I want to thank you ladies for tuning in today. And those of you who are out there listening to us in social media land, as always, thank you for tuning in and listening to this conversation. We appreciate you greatly. Grace and peace.